Hello, and thank you for joining us for THR Presents with the cast of Showtime's Yellowjackets. I'm here with, we're calling you guys the 90s crew, I guess, even though, funnily enough, I think maybe only a couple of you were even born in the 90s. But
I'm a 90s baby.
Yeah. Totally. Okay, I promise not to grill you, like spend the entire time grilling you on fan theories. But I just want to know if you guys know anything about the show right now that like I and the viewers don't know, because I know you're about to head into season 2. Like, is anyone holding on to secrets? I won't make you tell them, but I like knowing. Okay.
I maybe know one secret, but not as many as I want to know.
I know. I'm like, we still haven't gotten any of the scripts yet. So.
We haven't gotten it. Yeah. So we don't know. We know that it's
I know a couple
later. If we're allowed to say that.
Are you allowed to say any of them, Liv?
No, I don't think the things that I know, I'm not supposed to know.
Yeah.
Like I found them out by accident.
Oh my God.
Okay. Perfect.
So sorry, we can't give you anything yet.
No, this is good. Now everyone feels like it's easier that way.
You can't ruin anything, at least.
Yeah. I feel like it's got to be interesting now. Obviously, when you guys filmed season 1, you had all of these like answers and secrets as you were going through, but you didn't have anyone like coming to you wanting to know. But like, at what point did people, either your friends, family, people on the street, people in interviews, start like asking for your theories or your takes or like what you knew? Like, did that happen quickly?
Well, it's funny because we, even shooting the first season, we always found out everything on a need to know basis. Like we would get the scripts one at a time pretty soon before we would shoot them. So even as we were filming, we as a cast were coming up with fan theories for the show we were in. So the pleasure of it coming out for me was watching people come up with theories that we'd discussed on set.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, there were so many times when like, I was like, oh, Liv's gonna die. And then I was like, oh, Liv's gonna die again. And then I was like, Liv, do you die? And they're like, I don't know. So I feel like we can really relate to the fans who are like, we want to know more. Cause I'm like, yeah, like same.
Yeah.
I actually, while we were filming, my agent stopped reading the scripts as they got sent because they were like, had read a few in and they're like, we don't want to know anymore until it comes out. Like, give us no information. So that was like the opposite.
Yeah, I found myself asking myself a lot more questions, even just through interviews, like just diving a little deeper in the character. And I was on Reddit for a second and I regret that. As soon as it came out, I was like so invested on Reddit, and then finally I was like, no, I have to focus on, like, I can't have all of this like noise.
Yeah, the Reddit threads are really dangerous.
It's intense. It got really intense really fast.
But I kind of like, I mean, I love the passion. Yeah. I love the passion behind it because I'm like, damn,
so
these people are in it.
They're smart. We have a smart fan base.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of people are taking notes as they're watching. Courtney, I feel like I have to ask you, because the season 1 kind of ended with you so much. Obviously a lot of questions around like your character, but I guess, are you hoping that you'll get a present day version of yourself? I feel like you guys, between the 4 of you, 2 of you get the experience of knowing the present day version of yourself and 2 of you don't. I feel like Lottie's is kind of the most hanging in the balance right now, but what are your feelings there?
Yeah, I would be excited to. And I think I like if I did get an older version, the way that it's going around now, because I remember watching everyone that did have an older version and being like, oh, I don't know how I would like share a character to begin with and do all this prep. So if I do, I think it'll be exciting this season to meet someone in the middle of something I've already established. And they bring something to it, but yeah, hopefully.
My mom has theories. She called me yesterday and I was like, Mom.
It's something that I've said this before, but I'm not used to thinking about it this way around. Like usually as a younger actor, when you're playing, when there are 2 age brackets of the same person, usually they find the older version first and then you work off whatever they've done, or like it's it's strange to imagine a possibility in which somebody else has to use me as a frame of reference. And that's really interesting. I don't know what that would be like, but we'll see.
I kind of like that it would be around that way though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good experience. And Sophie and Samantha, what has it been like for you guys to have that kind of experience? I'm curious, like how Juliet and Christina have kind of like informed your own acting, I guess.
I feel like I played the younger version of people before, you know, so I like what Liv was talking about. I'm like, yes, I've lived this before, you know, like playing the younger version, but I feel like I always come into a project later, or I'm such a small part that to me, like, it's like, oh, you know, I'm just doing little bits and pieces, but here we really got to create the characters together. I do think that there is such a jump between, you know, the 90s versus today and personality. So of course they're going to be kind of like two different people, but with Misty, she doesn't really change too much. She, you know, as Christina will say, like, you know, has gotten a lot more passive aggressive as she's gotten older, and definitely has had the wear and tear of life. And I think at this point, it's interesting to see that she's just starting to learn what it means to manipulate somebody and what it looks like to get power and, you know, what she wants from people. So I kind of get to be the one to experience what that looks like, where she gets to be the experienced one who's lived a life doing that, if that makes sense. And so, I mean, it was really scary at first getting to like be paired with Christina Ricci, because I was such a fan. So I'm like, oh my gosh, these are like big shoes to fill. Like, this is like a big opportunity. And the fact that they're entrusting me to play the same character as her as an equal feels intimidating and terrifying, but also very exciting and I'm very grateful. And so it's been a really big blast to be able to make Misty with her.
Same. It was intimidating for me just because I grew up with Juliet, and I kind of have, she's so iconic and has such a specific way of talking and like carrying herself. So it had to be pretty spot on. And now that I've thought about it, I've actually played a younger version I played a young Gina Davis a couple years ago, which is like, it's a really specific task. That's cool. I know, right? Now that I'm saying it out loud, I'm like, that's really cool, actually. But me and Juliet were always on the same wavelength. We would just take calls in between getting the scripts. It's interesting now that we've had almost a year since we filmed and watching it. I think now there's some things that I'd like to do personally to tie the two together, because I think Natalie has the biggest contrast between younger and older. And just watching it and seeing like Juliet's physicality and how like free she is, there's some things that I want to work on as an actor to get to that level of like freedom and looseness. And that's exciting, and I hope I get to explore that in season 2. But there's a lot that I've learned from her just from watching her too. But it's been an honor. Yeah.
The older, I mean, older relatively speaking to you guys, not actually old.
I know.
The older cast, my age cast, I guess they're on the cover of Hollywood Reporter, which I believe
so gorgeous.
Yeah, Wednesday.
So good.
And something I was so struck by in the interview that they did was they were talking about like, you know, they have this like lived experience of being in this business, which can be kind of hard. And from their generation, you know, they went through a lot of like pressures, and there was a lot of like shitty industry stuff that was like coming down on them that we're all now kind of like pushing back against. And I forget who it was, but someone, maybe it was Melanie, was like, oh yeah, I reached out to all the younger girls and I said, like, if you need me, and she's like, and they're so confident and like sure of themselves, like they don't need me, like I'm learning from them in the way that everyone's like kind of standing up for themselves and all of that, which I thought was really special. But I'm curious, I guess, if there is anything from like the business that you guys feel like you learned from watching them, or if you feel like, you know, that you taught, if there's anything you taught them that you felt.
I will say that I remember vividly when Melanie did that, when she reached out to all of us at the beginning of the night, because it did mean a lot to all of us. It was really reassuring and really meaningful that she went out of her way to set that tone, like with us and with the set going into the project. So it's interesting that like we give off the impression of like not needing it, because it was lovely. Like it really meant a lot to us.
I want Melanie to email me on every job.
Just knowing that you have a safe space to go to, and I think it really set the tone. Like she's our number one, and she's opening the door for us to go to be safe, to have somebody who's going to listen and hear you. And I think that like just that gesture was huge, and like immediately put me at ease, and I think that we're all very lucky to live in a space where we can talk about things like our mental health and like where we're at. Like, I feel like we've been able to, I'll speak for myself. I've been able to be very like vulnerable and honest about like where I'm at and how I'm feeling with this really amazing cast, which is very helpful, I find, to be able to talk about when you're going through struggles,
It's such a beautiful back and forth, because like that support and that ease that we feel with the older cast like allows us to be as confident and as expressive as we are, particularly on this job. And it's like we couldn't do it without each other, and that's something about this job in particular that I really love.
They also said that their group chat with the four of them has the name the Trauma Queens, which I think is incredible. You guys have a name for yours, and if not, obviously you have to.
Ours is just Yellowjackets 3 out of 3.
It's not. It's not
rename it for season 2, but there were people that kept getting added and
It's gone through some funny profile picture changes through the phases of the filming.
When we went to Canada to film, a bunch of us got Canadian numbers. So we went through this period of like, is everybody in who needs your American numbers in here, but not your Canadian one? And by the time we finished it, it was like, this is 3 out of 3 of Yellowjackets. This is everybody. But it's quite logistical. It doesn't have as cool a name.
Yeah. We need to rename that season 2.
I know. We need to get on that. The Trauma Queens is just brilliant. Like that. When I heard that, I was like, that is iconic. It's so good.
It's really good. And something that strikes me about this show, like watching it, trying to imagine what it's like to make it, is like the physicality and the strenuousness that it takes from to film like out there. I know you're not in the exact same elements, but it seems like you're pretty still in a lot of elements, even if you're safe at the end of the day. But did anyone learn any like wilderness skills? Like, do you feel more prepared to be out there than you did?
I think it made me realize more that I'd probably just like it's known on all sets that I get injured really easily and I bruise like a peach, and there's multiple photos throughout the first season of like this progression of what my legs turned into.
I have a screenshot of what your legs look like, Courtney, not to be creepy or anything, but I have a screenshot of your legs, because this girl is just bruised and scratches and scrapes and scars. I'm like, oh my God.
Throw myself around.
Day one, yes.
Yeah.
And then I re-injured it was a mess. So I'd probably just lose a limb out there and not survive.
It's okay. I'll chop it off and I will cauterize it for you.
Towards the end, when it became like having prosthetics on my face and like a big contact lens and wearing a mask all the time and like just leather, and I ended up getting better at meditating, because I would just have to like sit, because I was physically uncomfortable a lot by the end, because we're all covered, we're wearing dirty clothes, there's like fake blood all over us, there's mud, and we're just sort of sitting there like, okay, everything's fine. Like I just have to breathe and go somewhere inside, which ended up being helpful, I think.
Honestly, I don't think that like people, like the audience really understands like how much Liv went through with the prosthetics, like, because I have contacts in the show, and to me, like, that's already like a lot, like having somebody stick their finger in your eye, because we have like a lens person doing it and whatnot. I was like, this is a lot. But then I look over and Liv is just covered in blood. Like it's cold at night and shaking and cold, and like the eye, everything. And and they're just like, and I'm like, I like seriously like freaking warrior over here, because that's a lot. Like, and we were in the elements, like we were, you know, it was pretty intense. We were during like the heat wave too for Canada, which was like some of the hottest days they've ever had in like the history of Canada or something. I don't know, something like that. And so it was definitely a lot. I am hoping to see more of the soundstage this season.
Yeah,
I think we will.
it was like, anytime we looked outside, we were outside. Anytime it looked like it was nighttime, it was.
Everything was pretty practical. Even like the plane first day of shooting, when we went into rehearse and everyone just screaming. We're in the middle of a forest in this crashed plane, just screaming about.
Yeah, it's very real.
Sophie, did you know how to shoot a gun before this show? Because that's like your big skill, and you do it on screen.
I don't know why. I've done some sci-fi stuff. I did the Star Wars thing. I had a gun, but always really weird, like sci-fi guns that are not practical and not normal in any way. So I didn't know how to shoot an actual gun, but I know how to hold it and like look badass and be like, so I can fake
You
it.
look badass.
Thank you. But I've just done a lot of sci-fi stuff, so I know how to hold it comfortably and like put myself in that mindset. But no, I didn't. And I did some gun training, and guns are absolutely terrifying to me. That was, I mean, just so loud. And once it goes off, it's like you go into this weird disassociative headspace because it's so loud. But I mean, I hope that I get more with it because I think it's a good character arc for Natalie. So
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of like scariness too, I know a lot of people talk about being on a scary show or in a scary movie helps like break down the scary elements. Like when you kind of see the sausage being made and understand how it is, like you're not scared the way you used to be. But when you guys watch the show back for the first time, like, was it still freaky?
I never quite got comfortable with the guy with no eyes. Like, it doesn't matter how many times I looked at that person that didn't have eyes, I still thought it was freaky no matter what.
That was
so
a
whenever
lot.
I saw it, I was like, oh, I don't like that. I don't like it at all. You know,
that was my least favorite, definitely.
Yeah. But I think, sorry, go ahead.
I think because we all also got on so well that when we were messing around on set, like for me, the seance scene was like, everyone was just joking around that day. And it was
so
funny.
good,
So
Courtney.
I just remember times when like it cuts to a shot of like Sophie and Elise holding me. And while we were filming in between takes, she'd be like whispering stupid nothings in my ear and trying to make me laugh. So like it's a mix for me.
Yeah, but Courtney was so like seeing that scene back, like Courtney, like I knew, like it gave me chills when we were filming it, but watching it back even, like I was like, oh, Courtney's crazy good. I love it.
I think there's a real phenomena when you're working on something that's scary or like grisly or thrilling, like especially since we all got on, there's an amount of joking around you do with each other to blow off steam and to like keep everybody sane, where it's like, okay, when they call action, we're all going to be screaming and crying and it's the worst day of our characters' lives. Every day we're doing this. So in the in-between moments, there is a real release of like trying to make each other laugh or like trying to break the tension that we're sitting in. And so as a result, it's like, it is a lot of fun and there is a bit of a separation from how scary it is once it's made, which I get a kick out of.
Absolutely. I was going to say the lightness in between is like the most important part, especially if we're there for 6 months. And because we're also like from day one vulnerable with each other, it's like we've already seen each other at our worst. So it's like,
and even when there were emotionally heavy scenes, like the scene where Ella's coming down from the cabin after having some fun time. And we were pushing her around and screaming at her, and she was just like, can I have a hug at the end of the scene? And like, we kind of, just support each other that way. Like,
it was really, because I wasn't there for the Doom coming stuff, like I was off trying to do something with Ben, you know? So watching that back was really, it was freaky. It was cool.
Mm-hmm.
It was really good. It was really like cool. I was kind of happy I wasn't there because then I got to really just be surprised by everything. And also the scene with Jasmine and Sophie,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, that one got me.
That got me. I was crying when I was watching that because it
What?
was just like, like, yeah.
I remember reading the script and then talking to our crew and our ADs and how many people had to stop reading at that point in the script with the abortion scene, or attempted abortion scene. But yeah, a lot of my emotions in our show.
But sometimes I like those scenes where I don't know how it was filmed. I don't know what it looks like. So then when we watch it back, I feel like I'm watching it just like the viewers are, you know, where I'm just as like in awe and just fully zoned in. And the same thing with the adults. Like I don't know most of the stuff they do. So watching, I mean, when I watch Melanie tearing a poor bunny apart, I was like, oh, that looks way too realistic. I can't.
Yeah, or Juliet's call your manager. Do you know what love is? Like, that scene got me good.
Killer. Yeah, the stuff that you're not the stuff that you're not there for, you're able to appreciate as kind of as just a viewer, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, were there any moments, like, I guess you're probably all really busy, like when you're not filming, but were you able to like kind of sit in Video Village or anything to watch like the current day storylines or anything like that?
No,
I went once or twice.
Yeah.
For fun.
Majority of the time
Like,
we were shooting at the same time, so that would be awesome. Though maybe this season.
That makes sense. I'm going to steal a question from Rebecca Keegan, my colleague who wrote that story, because she asked everyone kind of like essentially in their words, like, what is this show about if you were to boil it down? And I feel like that's such a good, because I think it's such a good litmus test too. Like when I talk to my friends about it, like, you know, a lot of people say female friendship or being a like teenager and changes, and like some of the men I talked to were like cannibalism. I'm kind of curious, like from your guys' perspective, like which theme of the show sticks out to all of you the most?
Survival, the things that you do to survive and what you do to yourself and others to survive and what that does to you in the long run.
I think for me, it's probably trauma, and not even just in the sense of what happens out there in the plane crash, but all these different lives that come together that have had certain traumas beforehand, and how that bleeds into people and their reactions with other people, and then add a whole other trauma on top. And yeah, I'd probably say that.
I feel like it's survival story, and also just it's a story about, you know, like, you know, seeing your past come, you know, and throwing back into your face, you know? And I feel like that's such an interesting element of just like having your past confront you and catch up to who you are now.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the biggest things for me, how trauma stays with you and affects you no matter what. You can't bury it down. And yeah, I think that's why the show works well, because it's the past, present, and the way it's formatted just works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I could not let you guys get out of here without talking about some 90s pop culture nostalgia. I think that is like I kind of didn't even realize like how much joy I was getting out of even like the soundtrack and stuff as I rewatched it this week. And I was like, wow, those little moments of joy really help lift you out of kind of like the darker, scarier parts, when like you guys put on this amazing song to like get ready for the dooms coming. But especially like, since not all of you experienced the 90s in the same way that like other people did, right? Like the same way, like I kind of know the 80s, but I not firsthand. But what, from filming and like from the shows, like does anyone have any favorite like memories from that part of the show, or little like the landline TV or landline phone, or
I
what
have
was my favorite relic?
I have a scene where I'm talking about my character is pretty good with music references, and she talks about Dinosaur Jr., and I remember listening to that record in high school, even though that would have been like 5 years before it was shot. It was just funny to see how like the resurgence of the 90s when I was in high school, and how it's like always going to be there musically, and everyone's going back to it.
Even fashion sense, like
even fashion sense.
everyone always goes back to the 90s.
But
Mhm.
musically, I think too, and that's why people love the soundtrack so much, because they have this as the best soundtrack in my opinion.
Thing to see
My
Misty.
my
oh,
favorite
sorry.
game. Oh, it's okay. My favorite game to play with myself is like what bands they're gonna put in next time. Where I'm like, oh, I hope we use Tori Amos. Like, oh, I hope we get to do this. Like, what are we gonna listen to?
Oh my god, for season 2, I'm so
Mhm.
excited.
I loved the decor of Misty's room, even though I feel like she's still stuck in the 80s a bit. There's just, with like the lipstick phone. And then I also got to sing Breakfast at Tiffany's. And I feel like I had a much creepier version of what that song was intended to be, but instead, it turned a little
Love
bit
it.
melancholy and creepy, singing it to Steven as he's taking a dump. But I really enjoyed just like all the props that they gave us, and just the little things, Sophie's like headphones and like things like that. I thought was really fun.
Yeah, I had, until you mentioned that, I totally forgot about that scene with the coach in the.
Yeah, I'll never forget it. It's my favorite scene still.
I think that's a wonderful place to wrap. Let's all leave this panel on the memory. Poor coach. Thank you all so much for joining us for this episode of THR Presents. Thank you to the cast of Yellowjackets. We so appreciate it. Can't wait for season 2. Hope you guys have a great time filming too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.